The crystal chandeliers of the Riverside Country Club cast an elegant glow over Boston's elite as they sipped champagne and traded gossip at the annual Sullivan Foundation Gala. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching my father-in-law hold court among his admirers. "My name is Angela Chen Sullivan, and this is how I expose the dark truth behind America's most respected family. Another drink, Mrs. Sullivan?" A waiter appeared at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne. "No, thank you. I needed a clear head tonight." 5 years of marriage to Michael Sullivan had taught me that his family was most dangerous when they were being charitable. "Darling, speaking of which," Catherine Sullivan, my mother-in-law, glided toward me with a group of society women in tow. "We were just discussing the foundation's new initiative. Perhaps you'd like to model the fundraising t-shirts? You do wear clothes so well." The implied insult was clear. That's all I was good for. Just a pretty face who'd somehow caught their precious son's eye. If only they knew what I really did at the cybersecurity firm they thought was my cute little hobby. "Thank you, Catherine, but I'm quite busy with work these days." "Oh yes, your little computer thing." She waved dismissively. "Though really, dear, now that you're a Sullivan, there's no need to pretend to have a career." Before I could respond, William Sullivan's booming voice cut through the crowd. My father-in-law, CEO of Sullivan Global Investments, was preparing to make his annual speech. "Friends, family, distinguished guests," he began, every inch the respected business leader. "Tonight we celebrate another year of Sullivan's success. Our company has reached new heights, with over $2 billion in managed assets." The crowd applauded. I took a sip of water, remembering what I discovered in those managed assets just last week. And of course, William continued, his eyes finding me in the crowd. "We celebrate family. Though some members," he paused for effect, "contribute more than others." Polite laughter rippled through the room. Everyone knew what he meant. Poor Michael Sullivan, heir to the family empire, had married beneath him. A Chinese-American girl from a middle-class family, pretty enough to be decorative, but hardly Sullivan material. Speaking of contribution, William raised his glass. "I'm proud to announce Sullivan Global's latest acquisition, Chen Security Solutions." My head snapped up. That was impossible. My brother's cybersecurity firm wasn't for sale. Tom Chen proved quite reasonable once we explained the benefits of joining the Sullivan family. "The papers will be signed Monday." The room spun slightly. Tom hadn't mentioned any deal, but then I saw him across the room, face tight with suppressed anger as he stood with William's lawyers. "A toast," William proclaimed, "to bringing strays into the fold." More laughter, more knowing looks. I felt Michael's hand slip into mine, squeezing gently. He knew what his father was doing, consolidating control over both his son's wife and her family's business. But William Sullivan didn't know what I knew. 3 days earlier, while running a standard security audit for Sullivan Global, I discovered something buried in their secure servers. Hidden accounts, falsified records, a massive web of financial fraud spanning decades. The acquisition of Chen Security Solutions wasn't about business, it was about silencing the one company that might expose their crimes. "Angela." Tom appeared beside me, his voice low. "We need to talk. Now." We slipped away to the club's garden terrace. In the fading evening light, my brother looked exhausted. "They're blackmailing me," he said without preamble. "They found out about Dad's old legal troubles in Singapore. Said they'd make sure he spent his retirement in prison unless I sold." Our father's legal troubles had been a misunderstanding, cleared up years ago. But the Sullivans were masters at twisting truth into weapons. "The deal's not final," I said. "We can still." "There's more." Tom glanced around before continuing. "Last week, our systems detected unusual patterns in Sullivan Global's accounts. I started dating, but then they came after Dad. Angela, I think they're running a massive fraud scheme." I finished. "I know. I found it too." He blinked. "How?" "Because, dear brother, while they think I'm just playing at having a career, I've been running CSS's International Cybersecurity Division for the past 3 years. Tom's eyes widened. "Does Michael know that his trophy wife is actually a certified ethical hacker who specializes in exposing financial fraud?" "No, I've been waiting for the right moment." "And now?" I smiled, thinking of the evidence already safely backed up on secure servers. "Now we have a choice to make." Back inside, William was still holding court, explaining how generously he'd deal with Chen Security's outdated management. Angela, darling, Catherine called out. Come tell everyone how excited you are about the acquisition. Though of course you probably don't understand all the complex business details. I walked over, the perfect daughter-in-law smile fixed in place. Actually, Catherine, I understand quite well. In fact, I raised my voice slightly, ensuring William could hear. I was just discussing some interesting findings about Sullivan Global's server security. William's head turned sharply. What findings? Oh, just some routine audit results. I'm sure your tech team will want to review them. All those hidden folders, encrypted files, fascinating stuff. The color drained from William's face. Behind him, I saw one of his lawyers quickly pull out a phone. Perhaps, William said tightly, we should discuss this in private. Why? I thought family business should be transparent. Isn't that what you always say? Catherine laughed nervously. Dear, you're obviously confused. Why don't you? Conference room, William cut her off. Now, 10 minutes later, I sat across from William Sullivan in the club's wood-paneled conference room. Michael sat beside me while Tom stood by the door. Catherine paced nervously while two Sullivan Global lawyers watched with worried expressions. What exactly do you think you found? William's voice was dangerous. I opened my laptop, turning it to face him. Shall we start with the offshore accounts? Or maybe the falsified SEC filings? Or should we jump straight to the money laundering? This is absurd, Catherine sputtered. She's obviously making things up. Michael, control your wife. But Michael was staring at the screen, his finance training letting him understand exactly what he was seeing. Dad, is this true? It's nothing, William said smoothly. Complex financial structures that a simple programmer wouldn't understand. Simple programmer? I laughed. Try Chief Security Officer of Chen Security Solutions, the company you're trying to acquire to bury evidence of your crimes. Crimes? Catherine's voice rose. William, what is she talking about? Would you like me to explain, Mother? I turned to her. How about starting with what really happened to the Davidson family's inheritance? The money you were supposed to be managing for those orphan children. The room went very quiet. You've been running a Ponzi scheme for decades, I continued, using new investments to cover the money you stole from previous clients. But it's getting harder to hide, isn't it? That's why you need to absorb CSS, to control the very people who might expose you. William's facade cracked. You have no proof. Actually, I pressed a key. I have all the proof. Copies of every document, every transaction, every cover-up. Currently uploading to multiple secure locations. The lawyers started whispering urgently to each other. What do you want? William finally asked. Want? I don't want anything. But in about, I checked my watch, 30 seconds, the SEC's fraud division will receive an anonymous tip with enough evidence to start an investigation. And this time, you won't be able to bury it. You destroy this family? Catherine demanded. After everything we've given you. Given me? I stood up slowly. You've spent 5 years treating me like a brainless trophy, using my family's business as a pawn in your games, all while stealing from widows and orphans. You didn't give me anything except a front-row seat to your corruption. My phone buzzed, confirmation that the SEC upload was complete. Now, I smiled at my in-laws. Shall we discuss what happens next? The next 48 hours transformed Boston's financial landscape forever. The headlines were relentless. Sewell Evangel Bail Investiments under federal investigation. By Alien Doeller Pwonzi Cem Xpozd Society Families Empire Be Wild on FRHD. I sat in the FBI's Boston field office, watching William Sullivan's carefully crafted world crumble on every news channel. The evidence is extraordinary, Special Agent Sarah Martinez said, spreading documents across the conference table. 3 decades of systematic fraud, all documented in perfect detail. Your software didn't miss anything. That's what it was designed for, I replied, thinking of the years spent perfecting CSS's fraud detection algorithms, though I never expected to use it on my own family. Michael sat beside me, still processing how thoroughly his father had deceived everyone. He hadn't spoken to his parents since that night at the country club, when William had tried to bribe me into silence with $100 million. You really think that's all it would take? I had asked him. Money? After what you've done to all those families? Now, watching the FBI's evidence teams carting away boxes from Sullivan Global's offices, I remembered Catherine's final words before they took her away. "You've destroyed everything we built." No, I had corrected her. "You destroyed it yourselves. I just exposed the truth." The scope of the Sullivans' crimes was staggering. Over 30 years, they had stolen more than $2 billion from their clients, using new investments to pay off earlier victims while pocketing hundreds of millions for themselves. The Davidson Children's Trust Fund was just the tip of the iceberg. There were dozens of similar cases: elderly retirees, widowed spouses, charitable foundations. The Sullivans had stolen from them all, counting on their sterling reputation to deflect suspicion. "Mrs. Sullivan Chin." Agent Martinez's voice pulled me back to the present. "There's something else you should see." She slid a file across the table. Inside were surveillance photos of meetings between William Sullivan and members of Boston's organized crime families. The money laundering wasn't just about hiding their fraud, she explained. They were cleaning cash for some very dangerous people. Michael's face hardened. "That's why they pushed so hard to acquire CSS. They knew your security systems might detect the criminal connections." "Exactly." I squeezed his hand. "I'm so sorry, Michael. I know this isn't easy." He managed a small smile. "My wife, the secret cyber vigilant. When were you going to tell me?" I tried several times, but your mother always interrupted with some comment about how a proper Sullivan wife shouldn't worry her pretty head about business. The memory of Catherine's condescension triggered another thought. The foundation gala, all those charities they claimed to support. Was any of that real? Agent Martinez shook her head. The Sullivan Foundation was their biggest scam. Less than 10% of donations actually went to charity. The rest was funneled through shell companies back to their personal accounts. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom. "You need to see this. Mom and Dad's house now." At our parents' modest suburban home, Tom was waiting with his laptop. "Remember how the Sullivans threatened to revive Dad's old legal troubles in Singapore?" I nodded. "Well, I did some digging. Guess who was really behind those troubles 20 years ago?" The evidence was clear. William Sullivan had orchestrated the entire incident, creating legal problems for our father and then helping to resolve them. He'd been laying groundwork for decades, collecting leverage over potential threats. "He was playing the long game," Tom said. "Probably started watching us as soon as you and Michael got serious." "But he never watched closely enough," I replied. "He was so convinced I was just a trophy wife that he never bothered to check what I was really doing at CSS. The next few weeks were a blur of federal investigations, asset seizures, and family drama. The Sullivan empire was dismantled piece by piece. Their mansions, yachts, and art collections were seized. Their social standing evaporated as Boston's elite rushed to distance themselves from the scandal. The victims began coming forward. I sat through dozens of interviews, hearing stories of lives destroyed by the Sullivans' greed. The Davidson children, now adults, had grown up in poverty while William and Catherine lived in luxury on their stolen inheritance. But it was the smaller betrayals that cut deepest. At the emergency board meeting of Sullivan Global, we discovered that even the company's legitimate employees had been victimized. The Sullivans had been stealing from their pension fund for years. Michael threw himself into making things right. As the only Sullivan not implicated in the crimes, he worked with federal authorities to help recover assets and compensate victims. The guilt of his family's actions drove him to work 18-hour days, determined to salvage something positive from the wreckage. 3 months after their arrests, I sat across from Catherine in the federal detention center. She had requested the meeting, though I couldn't imagine why. "You must be very pleased with yourself," she said bitterly. "You've destroyed a dynasty." "You destroyed it yourselves," I replied calmly. "I just chose not to be complicit. We gave you everything: status, wealth, a place in society. And this is how you repay us." I leaned forward. "You gave me nothing but contempt and condescension. You saw me as a pretty ornament for your son, too stupid to understand your complex business dealings. That was your mistake. Our mistake was letting Michael marry beneath his station. No, your mistake was believing that status and wealth matter more than integrity. That's why you never saw me coming. You were so busy looking down on me that you didn't notice I was looking right through you." As I stood to leave, she called after me, "He'll never forgive you for this. A wife doesn't betray her family." I turned back. "You're right. A wife doesn't betray her family, That's why I stopped you from destroying mine. 1 year later, Michael and I stood in the newly renovated offices of Chen Sullivan Securities. The company combined CSS's cybersecurity expertise with the legitimate remains of Sullivan Global, creating something new from the ashes of scandal. The Davidson children attended the opening ceremony. They were helping us establish a foundation, a real one this time, to help victims of financial fraud. The eldest, Sarah, now worked in our legal department. You know what's ironic? Michael said as we watched the sunset from our new offices. All those years they spent teaching me about power and status, and it took losing everything to show me what really matters. I thought about William and Catherine serving long prison sentences while their empire crumbled. They still didn't understand that their real failure wasn't getting caught. It was believing that appearance mattered more than substance. Tom joined us, carrying printouts of our latest security algorithms. Just got the FBI contract approved. They want to implement our fraud detection system across all major financial institutions. Not bad for a trophy wife's little computer thing, I smiled. The Chen Sullivan Foundation's first initiative was a scholarship program for women in technology and finance. We named it the Catherine Sullivan Memorial Scholarship, not to honor her, but to remind everyone that the greatest frauds often hide behind respectable facades. Last week, I spoke at a conference on corporate crime. Someone asked what I'd learned from bringing down one of Boston's most powerful families. Success isn't about what you appear to be, I told them. It's about what you actually are. The Sullivans spent so much time maintaining their image that they forgot to maintain their integrity. Michael and I are expecting our first child next spring. When they're old enough, we'll tell them the whole story, not to dwell on past wrongs, but to teach them that true worth isn't measured by social status or bank accounts. It's measured by what you do when faced with a choice between easy wrong and difficult right. As for those society ladies who once whispered about the Sullivan heirs' inappropriate marriage, they now whisper about the woman who exposed Boston's crime of the century. But I don't care about their whispers anymore. I'm too busy building something real.